In this section, we will consider denominators in public health. As a mathematical concept, the denominator is the bottom number in a fraction, so 1 out of 4, for example. Essentially, it is our total population pool. Most commonly, we think about people, but this could be anything: jelly beans, hospital admissions, trees, salary, or car crashes, for example. In public health, while numerators are measures of health events, the denominator is the population from which events are drawn. For example, if we are measuring the incidence of pregnancy among teens, who might comprise your denominator? In many populations, we might think of young women aged 13 to 19 years in our population. So why do we care about denominators in public health? This is the reference population from which health events are drawn and measured. It is the total population in an area over a defined period of time, and therefore used for reference and comparison to give us an idea of the scale and scope being represented by our numerator. So where does denominator data come from? That number can also be collected yourself or in the context of a study, but perhaps more commonly, the data is obtained from somewhere else. This can be a census, which is an enumeration of individuals living in a particular community. It can also be individuals enrolled in a local school or a registry of identifications. In international health, we use sources of international population statistics that can come from the World Health Organization, the United Nations, or other research agencies, such as demographic and health surveys that are routinely done in most populations. It's important for you to know the population in which you are working. You must have a sense of who is in your catchment area in which you are interested in working or changing health situations. You have to have a knowledge of the population structure in order to have effective policy making and planning. And this can also help inform the allocation of resources. So let's think about how population structures may change over time. These two figures come from the U.S. Census, which compare the population in the U.S. in 1950, which was approximately 152 million people, to the population in the U.S. in 2000, which was just over 282 million people. If you look at the figure from 1950, you can see that there was a heavy distribution of individuals under the age of 5 compared with the number of individuals at the other age groups. You can see a swelling of the population size in young adulthood, approximately ages 20 to 35 or 40. You can see that this is true both in the males, which are represented in blue and on the left of each figure, versus females that are represented in the yellow or tan and on the right of each figure. Now compare the 1950 figure with the 2000 figure. Here you can see that individuals under the age of 5 are actually smaller in number than individuals that are in young childhood, say between the ages of 5 and 15, but also compared with individuals that are between 35 and 50 years of age. You can also see that the oldest age groups have increased compared with 1950. We can also see that at the upper age groups, age 75 and beyond, there are a larger number of females comprising those age groups than males. Information such as this is critical when conducting public health work so that resources can be targeted to appropriate populations within the communities being served. So what is it that can be counted? People, communities, or entire populations? What you use as your denominator relates back to what you are measuring or what you are trying to do. There are two important notes to consider. Note 1. In order to be counted in the numerator as a measured event, the individual must also be in the denominator. You can only count numerator events drawn from the overall population that you are looking at. Note 2. You can only measure events that can occur in your denominator. Again, events must be drawn from the overall population that you are aiming to count. So your choice of denominators might change. Let's consider this example. There is a new test to identify a particular health condition K. You are tasked with deciding how many test kits to purchase in the community in which you work. What is your denominator? Is it the number of people in your region in entirety? Or Is it the number of individuals that are within the age or sex subgroup that are at highest risk for disease K? This might differ based on how expensive your new test kit is and the resources that you have available to you. Now let's say you learn that although everyone is eligible to access this test, only one health insurer in your region actually covers the cost of administration of this test. Now, who is your denominator? Perhaps you might change this to the number of individuals that are actually covered by that specific health insurance company. Keep in mind that identification of a denominator can actually be very difficult. Remember, not everybody wants to stand up and be counted. Even when we think about a very comprehensive denominator, such as a census, there are individuals that are missed. In any denominator you should think about, for example, are individuals that are incarcerated being counted? And is that important for your question? Are individuals that are homeless counted? And is that important for the allocation of services by your agency? So let's take a moment and do this exercise. Consider a fictional community X that has a total population of 100,000 individuals. There are 600,000 males, 60,000 of whom are 13 to 19 years of age, and 400,000 females, 40,000 of whom are 13 to 19 years of age. You are interested in looking at episodes of teen pregnancy in your population. For this question, what is your numerator and what is your denominator? For our question, what might be our appropriate numerator? We might use, for example, the number of pregnant females that are aged 13 to 19 years. And what would our appropriate denominator be? In that case, it would be the total number of females that are aged 13 to 19 years, or in our example, 40,000 young women. This gives us the power that numerators and denominators can have as we consider public health work, but also the importance of very carefully defining where denominators come from and how we use those in our questions or in our work.